guys. Since the store has been closed to browsing, we've been brainstorming new and unique ways for us to come together to talk about books. So we thought it might be fun to do weekly book chats where our booksellers virtually meet up to talk about what we're reading in quarantine. For us, it's a good way to catch up while we can't be together in the store. And hopefully for you guys watching at home, it's a way to stay in the loop about the latest books. So I'm Katharine. I'm a bookseller and event coordinator at Wesleyan RJ Julia.
And I'm Zack. I work with Katharine at the store as well. I'm not an event coordinator though. Just
You're a bookseller. You have a title. So yeah, let's get into it. How you doing, Zack?
I am okay. I mean, as well as we can all be. I'm happy to talk to you. We're on like different shifts right now. For our viewing audience. Yeah, you're working. What days do you work? I still don't know.
Yeah, I'm working Mondays and Fridays. And I think you're on Tuesdays, Thursdays, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you got it right.
We haven't actually seen each other in person in a month. I mean, more than a month now, right?
Yeah. It's been a while.
Yeah.
And as much as we've talked, we haven't really discussed our reading habits.
No.
So this is a good time.
I know. We talk a lot, like the booksellers talk a lot in the store when we're not working with you guys about what we're reading because we all read really different stuff. So it's really fun to get like different perspectives, and everyone has different personalities. So like this is something that we would be doing normally in the store. And
yeah,
exactly. And we realized that we all missed doing it. So we wanted to find a way to kind of come together to keep talking about books. So what are you reading right now, Zack?
What am I reading right now? So I think I actually did like a little video for the newsletter and Instagram. I'm rereading the Hunger Games series in preparation for the prequel coming out in May 19th. So that's The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Pre-order it. I'm excited.
Yeah.
But the book I read before, what was that?
I loved The Hunger Games. I have to pre-order my copy.
I could talk about that series. We can make hour-long videos just about that. I mean, I could alone. I went to the movie premiere for like in LA for the last one. I think I told you that, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That was fun. I met everyone besides Jennifer Lawrence. I still regret that. But the book I read before rereading these, if anyone can read that, it's The Ocean at the End of the Lane by Neil Gaiman. Yeah. Have you read it?
I haven't. No, I've never read any Neil Gaiman.
I'm not surprised.
I know.
Katharine doesn't read. It's like my least favorite thing about her, and there are so many. I'm kidding, but like she doesn't read fantasy or like fiction in general. No, you read some. I guess you read some
fiction. I read mostly literary fiction because I'm a pretentious snob. No, that's not true.
Wow.
I don't know. No, I don't know. I don't read a ton of fantasy. I love dystopian fiction. I loved The Hunger Games. Like I read some young adult stuff. But I have to like you need to tell me what to read. Like I don't know fantasy. Like it's a blind spot for me. So I need you to tell me what's good and what to read.
Well, I mean, like there are different, like as you know, like there are different subcategories for every genre. Like I cannot do high fantasy. Like so like that's with, I mean, it depends. Like if it like just starting out in like this high fantasy world where there are like all these different sub kingdoms and there's this lore that you're not explained, you have to discover it for yourself, and there are a million different characters, like that's really hard for me to get into. And those also tend to be the books that are 1,000 pages long, so like you have to know that that's something that you'll enjoy. It's intimidating. And I guess they're like I think like series like that people start out young with, like Harry Potter, can like lead you into those other big things, but I never got beyond
Yeah.
like that. So the fantasy that I kind of gravitate towards is one that's, I call it like user friendly
Mm,
or reader friendly. So like something like this. So you've never read Neil Gaiman?
no.
Like ever? I'm not surprised, but like, do you have like you've seen movies?
No, I mean I'm familiar with his oeuvre, but I'm not like I've never read
Is
or watched
what?
like his like body of work. His oeuvre.
Oh,
Oeuvre.
oh, you're like I'm familiar with his body, his oeuvre. I'm like I don't know. I'm not sorry.
Sorry.
Like
Anyway, I'm
you
familiar.
know like Coraline, right?
Yeah, yeah, but I've never seen it.
Okay.
I've
Oh
never seen
my god.
it. I know.
Oh my god. Okay, so he like writes like it's just his prose itself is so it's like straightforward, but it's also incredibly magical. Like he writes with like a very clear voice. Even when he's writing from a POV character, like in first person, like it's always there's this I don't know how to describe it other than it's detailed, yes, but it's not boring. Like you know how like you can read books that are like super detailed and it's like I don't care, just get me to the story. Like it's very cut to the chase, but also descriptive at the same time.
Yeah.
Ocean at the End of the Lane is about this guy and his. He actually doesn't have a name.
Mm.
He's purposefully. It's a first person narrative, and he is never mentioned by name. He's just I. Um, he goes back to his hometown. He's like in his mid to late 40s. He goes back to his town for a funeral, and he visits his old house that he grew up in. And while he's there, he starts remembering things about his past when he was a boy, when he was about 7 or 8 years old. And especially over the span of, I think it's like one summer where he gets a nanny. They get a nanny in the house. And also the adventures he has with like this little girl that lives next door and her mother and grandmother who she also lives with. And very quickly it becomes apparent that these are, I'm not going to spoil it, but they're maybe magical beings of
Mm.
some kind.
Okay.
um
Oh, so is
so
that
it's told through.
sorry, is that why you
Hmm?
were bringing up Nothing to See Here before we started recording? Because
What?
is that why you brought up Nothing to See Here before we started recording?
um yeah, I mean I want to read, I want to read that. I know, like, because like you say that you don't really like fantasy, but that's fantasy.
It's kind of, yeah, it's sort of,
I think if I were a stickler, I would say it's magical realism,
I was
which is
just gonna
basically
say,
the.
yeah, I was just gonna say it's like magical realism, but like, I don't know, felt so grounded in reality to me that like
Mhm.
Tale of the Children setting on fire was just like,
Normal.
yeah, like it was
But
just,
like, is it normal to the main character?
no, no, so
Okay.
they are definitely like magical beings, but that's not how it's framed. Like
Hmm.
we don't there's no drive to discover, well, there's no drive to discover what causes this to happen. It's
It's
like
just
how do
dealt
we
with.
control it? Yeah, like it's just dealt with.
Hmm.
And so I think that's why I don't think of it as fantasy, but it kind of is. Like,
It is, yeah.
yeah. I mean, people don't
Hmm.
burst into flames in real life.
No.
That reminds
Yeah.
me that you describing the plot of Ocean. I would read this book just based on this description so far.
Yeah. I mean, it's so weird because, like you say, like you like that it's grounded. This is like
Not.
it is in the beginning, and then as you dive into his memories, he's he's telling you his memories as he remembers them as an adult
Hmm.
40 years later. So in that way, like there will be scenes where he's like, I don't remember how I got here.
Mm-hmm.
And he'll tell the reader this, like, I just don't remember. And you're gonna have to like, okay, go with it. And also that's part of that makes it realistic to me because like I don't remember certain things, how I got to certain places.
Mm-hmm.
It's part of the narrative.
Right.
But like also the fantasy element is like, you just have to stick with it. You have to read it and be like, okay, where are you taking me, Neil Gaiman? And then by the end, you're like, okay, I'm in.
Yeah.
I got it. I know why certain decisions were made.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. I like that I like when you have to kind of put your trust into a writer.
Yeah.
And I don't know where this story is going. And like,
Or like the decisions. Like, I mean, like, how did he come up, like, the certain things, like, how did he think of a cloth monster?
Yeah. That's how I feel about
Cloth.
genuinely how I feel about Nothing to See Here, where I'm like, how did he come up with this concept to craft this story that's just so it's really a beautiful story about, like, I didn't intend to talk about this book at all, but I really like it's a really genuinely sweet and beautiful book, but it's truly centered on like children setting on fire. It's bizarre.
Which sounds awesome.
Totally.
So like I'm assuming that many of our listeners, and also like because we work in the bookstore, we talk to people all the time. We're like, no, I could never do fantasy or anything fiction, which I totally respect because I could never. Not never. I'm going to talk about a book later on, like a recommendation for you, because you like a lot of nonfiction, right? This could be a good segue into what you like to read. But yeah, like we talk to people who are like, no, can't go near it, and something in me kind of like shrivels up and dies because like I want to be like, read.
Yeah.
I want, like, obviously something that you'll enjoy, but like there's something special about like
sharing something,
sharing something that I love, and then like having them come in and be like, or anyone, like just a friend, or like even my mom or dad or friends, like I just like telling them like, no, just trust me, it's really good. And then being like, yep, told you so.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, totally. There's that satisfaction where like someone leaves with a book that you recommended and you like are like, and I love that moment too, where I do pair up something with someone that I think that they will love. Like, oh, I know that like based on what you've told me, I know that you'll love this book. But like when I get to share a book that, like, regardless of what they read and what they like, and I am so passionate about it, and I can like convince them to read it, and like have them put that, like you say, like have them put that trust in you. Oh my God, it's like the best feeling. It's one of the best feelings in the world.
Yeah. I agree. So you like to read. So I told you. So yeah, that book is The Ocean at the End of the Lane. This is actually you're gonna make fun of me. You're gonna totally laugh at me. Okay, so I have 2 copies. I have 2 copies of it because we were just talking about this before we recorded. Like I have, like, look at my books. Like I have so many copies of like Harry Potter because like I'm obsessed.
Pause a minute and look at this bookcase behind you.
Okay, you don't see. I don't know if I should shift like over. I can't really, but like I have so many editions of Harry Potter because like I those books mean so much to me, and like if I see like a different like edition with like special cover art, I'm like, I need that. I need to like it's like a sense of like rediscovering the series.
Yeah, I have 2 copies of The Handmaid's Tale. I don't have both of them here, but I have, and I could have bought a third. I could have bought that one that I think Penguin Press released that has like it's hardcover, and like after the series came out, I think they released it, and it's red and it has The Handmaid in like a simple like outline. Do you have it?
Margaret.
Do you have it? Yes, I wish I had bought it. I'm not I didn't.
It's really pretty. It is really pretty.
It is. I have this one that I bought before the Testaments came out.
There.
Which I also think is really cute, but it's not hardcover.
It is really. It's yeah. That, okay, so we can like a little side tangent. Like as you will see in my bookshelf, like only hardcover. And I know that, I mean, it's not controversial, but like people prefer paperback because it's easy. But I'm like, no, like hardcover's prettier.
Well, this is like collect books. I totally get it. And like,
Yeah.
I like paperbacks. I used to be the same way, but I have sort of transitioned to paperbacks now because they're, I think, easier to like hold. My
Yeah.
hands hurt. My hands, after, no lie, after I got this job and I started reading like crazy, I was starting to get like hand cramps. Like my like left hand, like, because I hold my books like this.
Well, you're holding them wrong. That's why.
Well, my hand hurts now, so.
Maybe that's the next video. We have to, like, once we open up back to the rest of the public, we'll have hand holding classes. I mean, not hand holding, book holding classes.
We can finally touch again.
We'll pass it up. By your event coordinator. I mean,
I know.
Get it going.
I'm taking notes.
So I think we saw this version in the store. This is paperback. It's really pretty too. I got this because like I went on a vacation and I just started to read this, but I forgot it at home, and I'm like, shoot, like I wanted to bring that on the plane, so like I stopped in the bookstore and paid $6 or $7 for this. But yeah, like this one's illustrated. It's really cool. I'm not going to try to sell you it, but it's good.
Yeah, no, I would definitely read that. That sounds like something that I would probably pick up and enjoy. But yeah, right now, so actually I'm going to talk about this one first quickly because like it's being talked about everywhere and I'm sure it's on a lot of people's to be read list if they haven't already gotten it anyway. But Hidden Valley Road, which is nonfiction, by Robert Kolker. And we actually just did our first virtual event with him. He was in conversation.
Oh, okay.
And this book it's worth all the hype that it's getting. It's Oprah's book club pick for this month. And actually it was really funny because I got the advance copy for this, I think back in December. And like Brian just handed it to me and was like, this sounds interesting. Like, I think you'd like this. And I was like, I looked at it and I had just read The Great Pretender, which I don't have here. I think my mom is reading it right now, so it's upstairs. But that one is about mental illness and sort of the fraught history of mental institutions in the United States. And so I had just finished reading that one and
bit of light reading,
just something to pick up. Just pick up and put down if you feel like it. And so
there's a moth just flying around the camera. So like if you see like whoop, that's what it is.
Noted. But yeah, so he was like, I think you'd like this. And I stuck it and I was like, yeah, that sounds really interesting. But it was kind of one that I was like, I'll get to it when I get to it kind of thing. So I stuck it in my bookcase and frankly forgot about it. I was reading other things and my mom comes out after the morning that Oprah announced her book club pick and was like, I really want to read this book. And we don't usually align with Oprah's picks. She doesn't pick a lot of nonfiction. I don't know.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I was surprised that that's an Oprah pick.
Yeah, this I think surprised a lot of people. And she was like, yeah, I really, really want to read this book. And I said, oh, what's the title of it? And she said, Hidden Valley Road. And I was like, oh, I think I have that. And I like came down to my bookcase out, and no lie, like my mother and I read it we both sat down separately and like passed it between each other and read it in like 2 days. It's a story about a family that they were a military family. The father was a Air Force. He was in the Air Force and he worked on the base in Colorado Springs. And the family had 12 children. Don and me had 12 kids. 6 of them ended up being diagnosed with schizophrenia within their lifetimes.
Oh my God.
Which is just, that fact in and of itself, I think, has made a lot of people just pick up the book and be like, how does that happen? And that's kind of this questions. And it was really interesting, actually. I sat in on the event last night with Robert Kolker and Roxanne. And it was interesting to hear him talk about how the book sort of came about, because he started by talking to the two youngest and the two only girls in the family, and what their experience was like growing up, and sort of how they ended up coping with, I mean, it was a lot of trauma within the family. I think internal trauma and mental trauma, and also physical trauma. There's a lot of heavy material that goes on in the book with all of the children. And he kind of had two questions that he asked at the beginning of this whole project, where, how does this happen to one family, and how does that affect the family? And then the scientific question of like, how is this genetically possible, and how has this family impacted our understanding of schizophrenia, and how has it impacted, the science and the treatment of the disease. So it kind of flip-flops back and forth between Lynn DeLisi, who is a geneticist, and she worked with the family and did some studies on the genetic component of schizophrenia and how it gets passed. And we still don't fully understand it. I mean, scientists are still like discovering more and more about how it passes between family members, and whether or not it's even a disease at all. I think one of the most mind-blowing facts that I learned was that there is a kind of school of thought where schizophrenia is actually a symptom of a larger illness, that it may not be like an illness in and of itself. He gives the example of like ancient doctors used to think that, or like even medieval doctors used to think that fever was a disease, that you would call it fever, but now we know that that's a symptom of infection. So
wow.
like, I had never thought about that before, like, because it's always been, I mean, I've always thought of schizophrenia as being classified
as its own thing. Yeah.
Illness. So yeah, the science is still evolving. And it's also just a really fascinating memoir too, just about this, I shouldn't say memoir, it's a biography really about the family, and about all of the children and their parents and how they survived. I mean, and again, people make they have, a set of data in front of them, and they make decisions based on that data every day, in our personal lives. And I think Robert Kolker does a really, really good job of kind of unpacking why these different family members made the decisions that they did, working with what they had and what they knew and understood at the time. And so, yeah, he does another kind of thing that everyone is talking about around this book is just the compassion with which he talks about the family. You really sort of feel for them and all they went through. It's good. It's so worth the hype. So worth the hype.
Okay.
Seriously. And I think even for people who don't read nonfiction, like typically.
Yeah. So like, is there like I mean, there's obviously like a story, but how is it, I don't know, how is it like set up? Does that make sense? Like how is it structured?
Yeah. So
is it like narrative or?
It is narrative. He switches perspectives. I think the most we see is from the two youngest daughters, Lindsay and Margaret. Lindsay and Margaret are the two youngest daughters, and they're the ones who really spent the most time with Kolker.
And you said those are the only two daughters? They're out of 12 kids?
Yeah. Yep. The only two.
That in itself is like, that's a story right there.
Oh, totally.
Wow.
So you see the most of it from their perspective. It is definitely narrative. And it follows a pretty structured time, like forward timeline.
Okay.
Start with Don and Mimi and their courtship and their marriage, and then moving to Colorado and starting this family. And then we kind of work through the brothers, oldest to youngest.
Okay.
And again, yeah, we see a lot from Margaret and Lindsay's perspective because they really worked the most closely with Colgar to kind of write the book. And then the chapters again flip between the scientific perspective and the family perspective.
Okay. Oh, okay. So like, did you say the scientific? Is it like hard? Is it like harder to get through the sciencey parts or no?
I didn't think so, because that's that's what I really like in non.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't read a ton of memoir or biography. I usually read more like history, and more like science and nature. So I found a lot of that really fascinating, and I think he really breaks it down in kind of layman's terms, and it's not difficult to understand the science.
Okay, good.
And it's not so overwhelming. Like it's not so much of the book that you get bogged down in it and you're kind of like,
right,
okay, let's move the needle sort of thing. So it's he strikes a really good balance, which is hard to do, I think.
Wow. That sounds like, well, okay, so I feel like I would learn a lot from it because like I'm trying to think like schizophrenia, like as someone who doesn't have like any experience, like is there a learning curve or like is it?
No, I don't think so. Only because I think that the disease is so misunderstood, like across the board. I don't think that a lot of people, even that have it and that have loved ones,
can narrow it down to like a definition.
Yeah, I think, and it manifests in so many different ways, and you see that too in the family, where they all kind of have different manifestations of the disease, and that based on their personalities, it all sort of comes out, and they act in different ways, and they have different sort of levels, and that maybe even schizophrenia itself exists on a spectrum of severity. So yeah, I don't think that there's a learning curve for, again, the lay person coming into this book, because again, I think there's so much that like science and mental health professionals still don't understand about the disease, and there's still a lot of debate about best practices for treatment and whatnot. So
that sounds really interesting.
It is.
Yeah.
Well good.
And that just came out, right?
It came out like 2 weeks ago, I think. So yeah, brand new, worth the hype. If you haven't already picked it up, pick it up.
Yeah, I'm in work and on Thursday. I'm definitely picking that up. I'm gonna take a look at it. That sounds really interesting.
Did you say you had a nonfiction recommendation?
Like it falls onto like the same, like you know what I'm interested in. Like in case you weren't aware, in case you haven't read my personality yet, you know this book. I don't even know if you've read it though. Of course, in Harvard, if you do, right?
I have it.
You have it?
Yeah.
You read it?
I don't think I have it right here, but I have her first one. Oh, I know, and I know you love that book. I have her first one, Cleopatra. I don't think I finished The Witches. I remember talking about it with you, but I don't think I ever actually finished it. I should pick it up again.
It's if you started it, I mean, it's like it's hard to like pin down. Okay, so I'm interested in it because like I love that stuff. Obviously. So like, but like the historical, I've always been like, I've always been like really oddly interested in that side of our history. I just like mostly because like there's so much that like I can't imagine happening, but at the same time it's so apparent that it happens all the time, like these witch hunts,
The Salem,
blaming the other. Yeah. What?
the book's about the Salem witch trials for
Yeah.
those
In case you, yeah.
who know.
Salem 1692. Yeah, and like it follows a very, I don't know, I'm trying to, because it's been like a year or two since I read it, but I thought of you because this is like this. I read some history, but this was my favorite because she tells it in a, it's all factual, but like she embellishes not embellishes. She like describes, so like there are weather records and stuff, and she like goes like she uses narrative tactics and like fiction writing and like memoir writing, like tactics to paint a really vivid picture of the scene and setting and the characters, even though they are real people. She very much treats them like, I don't want to say fictional characters, but like they all have, she takes on their voice in a way that a regular biographer or historian maybe wouldn't. And it gives it, while it's very factual, it gives it a separate kind of punch.
Yeah.
Like I remember like the book opens like with a vivid description of a witch writing on a pole to a meeting with the devil. And it's like, obviously that didn't happen, but like she's using it to paint a picture of what was thought to have been happening in court testimonies.
Yeah.
And what this would be like for people hearing about it. Yeah. And it was as real as reading it. Cool. So yeah, I thought of mentioning that to you. It's a good one.
Yeah, I should pick that back again. Because I do remember liking her writing. Cleopatra was really good. So I will give it.
I know nothing about.
Cleopatra was cool because I was always really into historical fiction when I was younger. I read all those, like they had those diaries. They had a gold spine. I don't know what.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah. It's like the fake diaries of like, there was one of like Titanic, like on the Titanic, or like, yeah.
They had all the different royal like princesses and things. And I remember that one of my favorites was Cleopatra because I was like so into ancient Egyptian history. I was such a little nerd. Oh my god. I still am. But so I picked this up because I just have always had a fascination with it. And you're totally right. She really, I think.
Which some people have a problem with. Yeah. I know that. Yeah. Some people have a real problem with it.
But I don't think that it undermines the historical accuracy of it. I think she takes the spaces where we may not know exactly what happened or what was said. And I think she uses those as opportunities to be, like you said, a picture of these people, because they were real human beings that lived at a time. And so taking what we understand about that time, and people, I mean, that's all historical fiction is, right?
Yeah.
It's just taking liberties with what we understand to be true in history. Yeah. So no, I don't have a problem with it. And yeah, I liked this one. So I will give The Witches another shot.
Yeah, and I'm gonna look up Cleopatra because I that's another figure that I'm not entirely familiar with.
Really misunderstood. She was a bad mama. She was really cool.
She was a bad mama?
Not like a mother.
Oh, okay. I'm thinking like she's a bad mother. I'm like, that's sad. Okay.
She was, I think 13 when she became queen. And she was very smart. She was a very good student. And I think very, very misunderstood in history.
I'm thinking of like Marie Antoinette.
Yeah. I don't know.
Another misunderstood. She was not as smart. She she's blamed a lot for she's blamed a lot for France's downfall before the revolution. I mean, which, there were people starving, and she did spend massive amounts of money on clothes and food and parties, which were not necessary. And she's not entirely blameless, but I think her worst crime is being naive, incredibly naive and unprepared.
I think that's fair.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think now that we've devolved into a conversation of our favorite royal women in history,
right?
we should maybe wrap.
We should sign off.
It's so much fun talking to you. I miss you so much, and I hope
you as well. I can't wait to give you a real hug.
Someday soon, hopefully sooner rather than later.
Right. Yeah.
We can talk about books in
person. But until then, we should be doing this. Hopefully, we can maybe get a schedule and have different people hop on too.
Absolutely.
Would be cool.
Yeah. Hoping to do that. And yeah, I hope you all enjoyed watching us talk about books and just nerding out. All right. Well, goodbye for now, Zach. Thanks for talking books.
Goodbye. Goodbye, Catherine. Goodbye, everyone.